Breaking: Minsk pushes Poland to the edge. Tensions along the Belarus-Poland border have exploded into crisis mode. Polish troops fortify every meter, digging in for battle. Airspace completely sealed, no flight, no escape. Poland takes total control of the sky. Chaos in Belarusian intelligence. Lukashenko makes a desperate, high-risk move. The dictator is trapped in his own web with nowhere to run. Polish defenders on maximum alert, radar scanning, missiles locked. Europe stands ready to strike with full force. Lukashenko's regime hangs by a thread. Shockwaves threatening to rip across the region. Let's talk about it. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. Maria Farafonova here with the latest updates. Danger of a major provocation. Minsk moves to the edge. The Lukashenko regime, cornered and desperate, seems ready to risk everything. Intelligence agencies and analysts are sounding the alarm. Tension is mounting along the Belarus-Poland border, and Minsk may be preparing a large-scale provocation against a NATO country. Footage is spreading online showing rapid redeployment of Western military hardware through Poland toward the Belarusian frontier. Warsaw is on high alert. A desperate dictator might attempt reckless moves to curry favor with Moscow. Polish troops are deploying in full combat readiness to meet any threat. According to the analytical resource Ukraine Context, these fears are reinforced by the active movement of military equipment in the border areas and the introduction of new flight restrictions along the Poland-Belarus border. Warsaw is taking immediate preventive measures. In response to the potential provocations, parts of the eastern airspace are now closed. The restrictions will remain in place at least until June. The operational command of the armed forces has restricted airspace up to 3 kilometers in altitude. Civil drones, light aircraft and commercial flights are strictly prohibited in this zone, with exceptions only for NATO military operations and emergency services. The airspace is tightly controlled and any Belarusian violation could be intercepted without warning. The Polish Air Navigation Services Agency has officially extended the ban on light aircraft and drones in the 3-kilometer zone along the border with Belarus and Ukraine until June 9, 2026, citing national security measures and the need to protect the airspace from unauthorized objects. And there's more! Poland's Ministry of Interior has extended the buffer zone along the Belarusian border for another 3 months. This 78-kilometer zone acts as a secure corridor. Minsk continues provocations. Balloons carrying contraband are launched from Belarus, but their real purpose is more sinister: to test NATO air defense blind spots, forcing radar systems to operate continuously.
The buffer zone allows us to more effectively counter attempts at illegal border crossings. We are pleased to note a reduction in migratory pressure, but we do not yet consider this a stable trend. So we will continue using all means that have helped us stop illegal migration on this route so far.
With the sky and surface sealed, Lukashenko has turned to subterranean methods. Polish border guards uncovered shocking new tactics. Belarusian intelligence has recruited specialists from the Middle East to dig underground tunnels for smuggling migrants into Europe. One tunnel, about 1.5 meters high with concrete reinforcements, was found near the village of Narevka. Nearly 200 people were reportedly intended to pass through the secret passage.
Physical and electronic security measures at the border, such as thermal cameras and detection systems, allow us to respond immediately to any attempts to violate the state border, even underground.
At this moment, the patience has run out. Poland is ready to mine its borders with Belarus and Russia within 48 hours after withdrawing from the Ottawa Convention. As part of the Eastern Shield project, the country intends to strengthen protection of its frontiers against potential threats. This was announced by Prime Minister Donald Tusk while speaking at the Zielonka military training ground. According to him, Poland is withdrawing from the Ottawa Convention, which prohibits the use, stockpiling, production and transfer of anti-personnel mines. The country plans to deploy such munitions under the Eastern Shield initiative to secure its borders with Belarus and the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad.
We are in the process of completing this project, which is of decisive importance for our security, for the security of our territory and borders.
And Poland has reasons to defend itself. In western Belarus, residents report urgent call-ups of reservists for unscheduled training exercises, sparking widespread discussions on social media. Reports indicate that men in western regions of Belarus are receiving draft notices for military training without prior warning. Social media users claim that notifications are delivered within a single day, with deployment to training grounds occurring just hours later. Investigative editors note that previous campaigns were not accompanied by such an intense public reaction. Posts mention Grodno, Slonim, and the village of Baranki, where, according to locals, groups of reservists are being formed. Residents state that among those called up are fathers of large families and women with medical training. One report claims that a draft notice was delivered early in the morning and by evening the person had already been sent to a training ground. Lukashenko is plotting something, so Poland is not standing idle and is defending its own borders. Europe is arming itself. Poland will seek to create its own nuclear weapons and deepen cooperation with allies, in particular with France. Potential cooperation with Paris may include joint training and the temporary deployment of French Rafale fighter jets capable of carrying nuclear weapons in other European countries. All the details in the next report.
Countries throughout Europe are currently working to significantly strengthen their nuclear security measures. Poland is preparing a historic alliance with France, which is expected to change the nuclear map of Europe. Prime Minister Donald Tusk stated that Warsaw no longer wants to remain a bystander when it comes to issues of strategic security.
Poland is well aware that the threat from the Russian Federation is quite significant. This threat is primarily due to the Kaliningrad region. This threat is also caused by potential risks coming from the territory of Belarus. And Poland, instead of modernizing and reforming itself like the North Atlantic Alliance NATO, is primarily chasing a placebo effect.
Negotiations on a possible format of cooperation are being held with a number of European countries interested in strengthening collective defense. Earlier, French President Emmanuel Macron proposed expanding the French nuclear deterrence system by opening it up to partners. It is expected that the topic of nuclear cooperation will become one of the key issues at the upcoming summit in Paris.
The number of countries that will want to at least have a base on their territory where the nuclear weapons of France, the United Kingdom, or the United States could be stationed will, of course, increase. And countries like Germany could even afford their own nuclear program and the creation of their own nuclear weapons. Therefore, naturally, the number of such countries will only continue to grow. But I will repeat myself. Nuclear weapons are a destructive tool which, despite all their destructiveness and menace, are nothing more than a placebo effect in a conventional war.
The French initiative provides for various forms of cooperation, from joint exercises and demonstrations of capabilities to the deployment of France's strategic aviation on the territory of its allies. Paris believes that dispersing such forces will undermine the calculations of a potential adversary and strengthen the overall level of Europe's defense.
This is a reputational blow, and it will put pressure on Russia simply by the fact that countries which previously had not considered possessing their own nuclear weapons or hosting nuclear weapons from a third country on their territory are now thinking about it. This is the effect of the entire geopolitical strategy that the Kremlin has chosen in recent times.
For years, Putin has been blackmailing the entire world with the threat of a nuclear strike because he has no other levers of influence left. Earlier, the dictator accused France and the United Kingdom of preparing to transfer nuclear weapons to Ukraine.
The Russian army is suffering defeat in Ukraine, and at the same time, nuclear fever is spreading in Europe, with more and more countries wanting to possess nuclear weapons. This is a complete failure of the Kremlin's entire foreign policy strategy. Of course, this will put reputational pressure on him because the Kremlin will be powerless to counteract it and will be unable to prevent it in any way. All it can do is watch this process unfold.
France possesses the fourth largest nuclear arsenal in the world. Earlier, Macron announced an update to the nuclear doctrine. Paris intends to increase the number of nuclear warheads and will also stop publishing detailed information about its stockpiles.
There are official figures which may be counted in thousands of missiles or in tens or hundreds. But again, all of this is such highly classified information, and only what is advantageous for these governments to reveal ever comes to the surface. No one really knows how many combat-ready warheads each country actually has, and that's very important, combat-ready warheads. How many have been produced, how many are in storage, and how many are on active duty.
Macron also announced that the first French third-generation nuclear missile submarine will set out to sea in 2036.
And now the rich catch for the armed forces of Ukraine. A very important aerial target has been shot down. The occupiers' military aviation is going through difficult times. Ukrainian defenders are massively destroying their aircraft, and with the machines, highly trained pilots as well. All the details in the report.
On the late night of March 5th, the Ukrainian Navy, working in close coordination with Specialized Operations Forces units, successfully struck the Sivash drilling platform located in the Black Sea, where various Russian military units were currently stationed.
This platform was used by the enemy as an observation post, a communications relay point, and a site for deploying electronic warfare and short-range air defense systems with the purpose of controlling strike UAVs that were aimed at attacking the infrastructure of Odessa and Mykolaiv regions and posed a threat to civilian shipping. As a result of the combat operations carried out by maritime unmanned drones and aerial unmanned vehicles, enemy command and communication assets were struck, and significant personnel losses were inflicted.
The armed forces of Ukraine have also successfully managed to destroy a Russian Kamov Ka-27 military helicopter while it was attempting to perform a landing on the offshore drilling platform.
We regularly drive the Russians out of there as part of our planned operations, but this time the events unfolded much more dramatically for them, because now even if someone is still left on one of those platforms, they will have to wait a long time for evacuation, and it will be much more difficult precisely because the landing site is now blocked by the destroyed helicopter. The Ukrainian Defense Forces used various means: drones, unmanned boats, and also operated from the air. The approach was carefully planned, taking into account the types of weapons present there. The helicopter was shot down as it was landing, and all the equipment there was damaged. They used that tower for signal relay and electronic warfare suppression.
2 weeks ago, the Defense Forces destroyed 2 more Russian helicopters using strike drones, a multi-purpose Mi-8 and an attack K-52. The Russian birds were attacked at the Pugachevka airfield in the Oriol region.
It is likely that the Russians are using this site as a forward airfield for a combined helicopter unit tasked with intercepting Ukrainian long-range UAVs. The destroyed multipurpose Mi-8 helicopter, tail number 53, belonged to the 319th Separate Helicopter Regiment, based in Chernigovka, Primorsky Krai, Russia. The Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopter, tail number 18, belonged to the 16th Army Aviation Brigade, located in Zernograd, Rostov region.
Ukrainian systematic attacks on airfields and locations where Russian aviation is based have revealed that the occupiers have serious problems, a shortage of pilots. Ukrainian forces are increasingly succeeding in striking Russian aircraft right on the ground. In other words, the Kremlin simply doesn't have enough pilots to relocate planes and helicopters. The effectiveness of Ukrainian drone strikes has also increased significantly.
Preemptive actions are more effective than trying to counter these assets once they're already in the air. We see this thanks to technological advancements, the adoption of new types of weaponry, and the modernization of old ones, as well as the training of maintenance personnel.
According to open sources, the deaths of about 110 combat aircraft pilots and more than 150 attack and transport helicopter pilots have been confirmed. That is, the total losses among Russian pilots since the beginning of the full-scale invasion amount to at least 260 pilots. And this does not include accidents and incidents that have occurred with Russian aviation on the territory of Russia itself.
That's all for now. Stay with us to be the first to know what's happening right now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.